Hi, I'm Bruce,
And I'm Ellie.
and we're trying a little experiment here.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever done a YouTube, and it's been suggested to us that people might enjoy seeing us on YouTube. And it's actually just as unknown for us as it is for you what's going to happen here today. We really haven't talked about it at all. So I'm kind of in it for the experiment of seeing what happens here and how helpful it can be for myself and Bruce as individuals and couples, as well as for anybody who might be listening to us.
And for me, there's an aspect of developing the courage to just take the plunge into something that intimidates me. I'm scared, I guess you could say, I could say, of putting myself out here in some kind of role where I'm called upon to say something. Uh, I tend to gravitate more toward conversations. So maybe we'll have a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're the only two people here, so we might as well
Well,
have a
that's true.
conversation with each. I mean, there are hopefully possibly other people listening, but
That's true.
yeah, yeah. So I guess I do have a question for you. I'm wondering what's bringing you to do this, or is is there something that's inside that's saying for you you want to do this, or what that might be?
Yeah, there is. Um, I think there's actually something that I can transmit or resonate with people and with us because we do together. Um, and I don't know what that is. It doesn't have a particular form or shape until it happens. So we'll see. We'll see. It's an experiment, as I said. It's a for me. It's practice at doing something that I'm afraid of. So here I am.
Well, one thing that pops into my head to say is that for about 10 minutes before we started recording this, Bruce and I just sat together quietly in silence, kind of the usual kind of meditation that we do. And I think one thing that really supported that, doing it this time, is that we were sitting just kind of really right next to each other, just in exactly the same position we're in now, and my hand was on top of his, or his was on top of mine. I don't remember, but our hands were together, and there was something about the physical connection that is actually calming to my nervous system and helped me to go into what you could call the restful nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And I know there's actually been quite a few studies that have shown that when you're touching somebody else that you feel as a supportive person to you, or a partner, someone that you feel connected with, and you're holding hands, that actually does really quiet and soothe your nervous system. And I actually think they've also found that it reduces physical pain as well. So that's really interesting.
Well, one interesting thing for me during that time was there was a point in that meditation where uh, I felt your presence inside me. I felt us as a singular being for a bit, and then of course I made a story out of it, and then I had to start over again. So that's how it goes. But that was an interesting moment, or several moments of unity there. You
Hmm.
know, the other thing is when you talk about touch, it's like we've been married for a long time and known each other for good Lord, 50
Well,
some years.
since 1965, you can do the subtraction.
Yeah, and
We're both in our early
and
70s.
we still have these lessons that we have to learn. Like this, the one I'm thinking of is about touch, just remembering to touch each other as we go through the day, to, for me to put my hand on Ellie's back when we're in the kitchen, or hold hands if we are walking down the street to something. Um, it's odd that it takes some remembering to do that, but there's also what we call birdie calls, where uh, uh, there's just a little voice that says, "Oh, give her a kiss on the neck," So, and
Or
or what?
sometimes we might say birdie call.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that pops up for me to say here is that as we're hanging out with you guys, there could be moments where we don't say anything. And the reason that popped up for me is I felt there was a moment here where maybe there was nothing that was going to be said, and I wanted to let everybody know that that's something that you might expect. It's kind of like when you're hanging out with your family or your partner, and you're in the living room or whatever, and you're not always talking, but you still know the other person is there, and it makes a difference that they're there, and there may be some feeling that you notice. It's actually, as I said, really different than being there by yourself. And so this is similar to that, in the sense that, like, I don't feel like we're going to necessarily be filling up every space, and a lot of what can be felt here can be felt in the places where we're not actually saying anything verbally, where it's quiet, picking up on the felt sense of the quiet and what's there, what's here. That's actually a big part of what we want to share with you, because there's quiet even when we're talking, but sometimes it's easier to feel it, especially at first, when there's not speech. There's always, of course, some kind of subtle sound, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there may be periods like that. And I noticed now, for me, I felt like, well, I don't want you guys to get bored if we're not saying anything. So that's my own tendency to feel like I need to entertain, or I don't know if entertain is the right word, but provide something in every moment to keep people here, So you can, if there is silence, of course, you're in your own space. You can do whatever you want. So another thing that popped up for me to share when we were talking about the touch and connection is that a couple months ago I had an appointment with an osteopath that I didn't know, and Bruce had dropped me off there. It was early in the morning, and he went out to get a bite to eat, and I thought he was still having breakfast because it had only been maybe half an hour or so, and I was lying on the osteopath's table, and there was a parking lot outside, and the waiting room, of course, was inside next to where I was. And so the osteopath said, as I was lying with my eyes closed on the table, he said, did you know your husband was here? And I thought, no, he's not here. He's out to breakfast. And I think I mentioned that to the osteopath. And he says, well, he actually just pulled up into the driveway, into the parking lot. And the osteopath said, do you love him? And I said, yeah. And I felt my heart really open in a way that I hadn't even known, with feelings coming up that I hadn't even known were there, this really full depth of a love. And the osteopath said, well, because I asked that because your whole body really warmed up when he pulled in. And that was fascinating to me because I consciously had no idea that you were in the parking lot. And it's still a mystery to me. I don't even know what to make of it, but it was a very special message to me that happened, and it helped me to get in touch with the love that I feel for you, that I have for you, that I don't always feel every single day as we're going about our life, which is kind of like we're just doing our ordinary life, you know. And so it was really awakened for me and helped me see what was there. So it was really important.
When you told me that story right after it happened, you know, when you came down, it really made me feel glad inside. You know, it really made me feel loved. That was wonderful. Yeah. You know, love it's such a mixture of things. You know, human love I'm talking about right now. It springs naturally sometimes, but often you actually have to work at it. It requires remembering and practicing communication skills, which Ellie helps me a lot with.
I try.
Some things don't come naturally.
Not like I'm so great either, but it's easier to see what the other person's doing, of course.
But it does. So. It requires some practice. It requires developing skills, really, over the course of a lifetime, and practicing those skills, and especially allowing for forgiveness and regeneration, especially self-forgiveness, and taking the time and space that you need in your personal way of doing things to recuperate and get the strength to come back to a situation and work through it in a more productive way. Because stuff happens, you know, when you're together for a long time, or even a short time, maybe. Right, dear? Yeah. And one thing that we are really blessed with is both of us have a deep, deep appreciation of the silence and the space that's always here. And that becomes a resource for us.
Can you say a little bit about, on an everyday, normal level, how it's a resource so people get a sense? So
well, it's a resource for me. I can talk about me. For me, it's a resource for recuperation. If we're having some difficulty together, if I get a chance to just be alone for a few minutes, even as long as a bathroom break, I can find the silent place inside myself, the regenerative place inside me. And when we come back to it, a lot of times I've dropped my reactive state enough that we can make some progress in talking about things. Not always, but a lot. Yeah. And that's my way. My way is to take a step back and just get some time inside myself to recuperate, because I'm one of those people that regenerates internally. If I feel crowded on the outside, it's impossible for me to regenerate. I have to take a step back.
And of course, I never crowd, so it's just not my style. Yeah. But just kidding. So trying to lighten things up.
Well, we have different.
Try to lighten things up.
We have different styles. That's all. We have different styles.
Yeah. So one thing that we do we're different in a lot of ways, and sometimes it's annoying and frustrating, but actually ultimately I think it's a pretty good balance in that when we do have disagreements or tensions or arguments, my part of it is that I really want to persevere in clearing it to the deepest level possible so that we kind of get it out at the root so it doesn't keep coming back again. And I feel like your style, which we've also talked about, of course, is you're really good at letting things go, like not keeping things sticky. And I'm not as good as letting stuff go so it doesn't stick. So it's actually a balance, because I feel like we need to do both, really, to let things go and also look at things. Because if you just let things go and don't look at it, it's going to be like that weed that keeps coming back. But if you keep just persevering and you're not able to let things go, then you just have a buildup of stuff that's sometimes
toxic.
well, that's not even what I was going to say. I was going to say you have a buildup of little odds and ends that actually are probably small stuff that you don't need to sweat. Don't sweat the small stuff, and you can have a buildup of stuff that isn't really that crucial, but it's more on the level of just let this one go. That's what I was going to say.
Well, but you know how it is for me is if I get space from the situation, I do drop it, but it's not like it solves the problem. I'm aware of that.
Okay.
It's like I drop it enough that I can, maybe because I can compartmentalize, I think, and can
It's a guy thing.
compartmentalize better. And so I can easily put it to the side and carry on. But while I'm carrying on, I know it's still there, whatever the problem was. So then I'm working on it inside myself. It's so much easier for me to start by working inside myself. I don't generally tend to be very good at working things out completely in a dialogue. For me, I have to spend some time inside and let things kind of rise and see what the unconscious parts of things are in me, and then come back to it with a little more knowledge, actually, and a bit more, and a lot more equanimity. So that's just how it is for me. Everybody has a different way of dealing with difficulties and interpersonal conflicts and things like that.
Well, one thing that I want to share with you guys, and I think we're probably going to end pretty soon, because I think we've said enough for a first time, and it's been fairly serious, I think. But one thing I wanted to just tell you about us is that we actually live a fair amount of time in our camper trailer. So the last maybe 4 years or so, I don't know.
Yeah.
We've been living probably about half a year, or about half of the year or
On
so,
an average, yeah.
In a 32-foot camper trailer. And so that's a very small space, as you can imagine. It doesn't have a lot of room for separation. So that's a whole nother part of our adventure that we'll share with you guys as we go along, which also brings up a whole different arena of things to be looking at and playing with together.
Let's have a session or two on that, because it really is. I'm sure there are other people in the same boat. There are a lot of seniors, and we are seniors, traveling around the country in campers and enjoying it and having to deal with living in a small space together. So I think that's worth a session or two.
Sure.
You know?
Well, even if people are not living, even if you don't happen to be living in a camper,
Yeah.
there's still the same dynamics that come up oftentimes in a larger space, and also many people are living in smaller spaces that aren't campers. But it's just that they're kind of, the volume is up on it when you're in a camper. And sometimes we call each other billiard balls, because we're in such a small space and this teeny little kitchen area that's really the same as the living room area. And so in the whatever area, they're all kind of mushed in together. So we're literally bumping into each other a lot. And so it's kind of like billiard balls on a billiard table.
Yeah.
And it actually, I think it's really helps to put humor into stuff. And for me, I like to sing little jingles, which I will maybe share with you a jingle at some point, which I mean, they're spontaneous. Bruce has told me that they're really only a couple tunes that I sing, but I wouldn't know because I'm pretty tone deaf. So that makes the jingles even more interesting. Yeah,
I'll vouch for that. It does.
yeah. So anyway, this was fun, and
To whoever might be listening and watching this, thank you. Thank you for sharing this space with us. This has been fun for us.
yeah, and if you decide to tune in again, I'm sure this is going to develop. So I was just kind of asking a little bit for your generosity in allowing us a space to, I don't know, the word improve comes to me, but that's not really what I want to say. But bring more to this that might be useful for
And to grow in it.
to grow into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we love your feedback too.
We do. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.